Okay, so I'm going to talk about first the weather because it's important to the story. We were supposed to have, this is north central Texas, north of Dallas, and we were supposed to have temperatures dip below hundreds, okay, 100s. This is summertime, but anyway. So it didn't. Yesterday was 102. Today I think it's going to be 99, 98, 99. The heat index, of course, is going to be higher. And then tomorrow 100, back to 102 or something. Who knows when they'll stop. But I've mentioned before summer, I believe, that, I'm sorry this is jumping around, but where I live, people, during the summer, the heat, people, too many people, not everybody, of course, not everybody in any of this, they get, their narcissistic behavior just gets amplified, okay? Weather, it's them, it's in them, they're doing wrong. But that's just something that I see. As a sociologist, I see it, okay? When I say I see it, I see it. But, yeah, it's just amplified. It's worsened. And I said this before summer. I said this happens every year. I've lived here most of the past 20 years, so I pretty much have a clue. Yeah, I do have a clue. And so I was wondering how this year was going to be. At first, it wasn't so bad, but lately, oh my goodness. Yeah. And I've mentioned also in videos before, I live in what I call Narcissism-ville. It's really not the reputation I heard when the first time I heard about this place. I heard the reputation, and that is of people being very narcissistic who live here. Of course, again, not everybody, but it has that reputation before I even knew it existed. That was over 30 years, around 30 years ago. So all those are little important facts. Okay, in my experience in life with people like this, some people call them narcissistic or toxic people. Just kind of, not like a diagnose, but the behaviors of. My experiences with them is that if somebody feels, who is narcissistic, feels frustrated with something, they feel like they can take it out on anybody, a total stranger, it doesn't matter. Or if they feel like they're somehow superior, or they really truly feel inferior, but they put off that they're superior, they will take it too far. They will really harm somebody, mentally. All abuse is not physical. And they feel justified, that they have every right to do so. I ran across this just a few days ago, by the way. Yeah. And why I mentioned the heat, because it doesn't help. When you're dealing with 100 degrees, plus temperatures and the heating index is in the 110s. Yeah, like I said, I'm not blaming the temperature. The rest of us, we can deal with it ourselves. Hey, it's hot, but that's not anybody else's fault. For me to take whatever that fact out, I'm uncomfortable, take it out on somebody else. The rest of us don't do that. This might be a little more all over the place than usual, but let me skip to this part. What happened to me recently is, it's a very long story. I don't care to tell, but I'll give some of the highlights or worst part. Some of it. And basically it is that I joined something and I paid my dues, and I had a lot of plans for what I was going to do, like, anybody else would, anybody else does. Went there, did all my homework beforehand, spoke to people, all this kind of stuff. And went there a few times, no problem, except that because I live in what I call Narcissism-ville, of course I knew that there would be little problems. And yes, there were little problems each time I went. Little. The last time I went just a few days ago, it was a huge problem. A huge problem. And I was explained that this was a volunteer, and I didn't know that how it worked in the first place, and that they were wrong. That this is somebody who, she said she was over all of it, and that the person was wrong. There were two people involved. It should not have happened to me. She was very apologetic, but I have lived here, like I said, for most of the past 20 years. and I know the score, and I know how it goes, they apologize right then, but then they will move to protect themselves. Because what this guy did was defamation of character, mine. Okay, so they're going to quickly, after that, move, like I said, to protect them. Okay? That's, of course, if I were to take it to the next step. They would move, of course, to, I'm saying of course, but that's what I mean here isn't of course. They move to protect themselves. Okay? So if they see that their apology wasn't enough for me, yeah, and then whatever it is, you will not get a resolution if you take it, another step. It's just how it is. And one of the things I truly believe is that people that are here have learned this over generations now, that they can basically do whatever they want to anybody they want, and within limits, of course. I'm not saying like they can't go and kill you and get away with it, but yeah, people who work for and it is mainly a whole bunch of corporations or something, where it's big. I'm just gonna say it's big, but they've learned it. This is generational. This is the culture, part of the culture, and the part of the culture is, if you dare to, go that far, take it to another level, you got a lot to fight against. Corporations, not all of them. This is not a one-size-fits-all, all thing, and it's not a everybody does it thing is what I meant. But yeah, you know it. They know it. And that's the sad part of it. They know it. So a lot more to that. But basically, I had proof. I shouldn't have to just go somewhere and need to suddenly have proof. Oh my goodness. He had none. It was just he had a bad attitude. He wanted to take it out on somebody. As I know, he could have just been having a bad day. It's not my concern. It's not my problem. But he made it my problem. You see what I'm saying? He made it my problem. No. Aside from that, it did put me in a little bit of a funk, because it wasn't really that. It was accumulation of things. I've mentioned that especially recently, and I feel like I've said that my whole life, is especially recently. Yeah, that it was just too much. After I had a really seriously bad situation a few weeks ago, and just too much back to back. Then I wound up in the hospital, remember, and all that. So nobody needs it ever. I certainly didn't need it then. So one of the things that this comes from this is that I will feel again, like I said, most of the past 20 years, that I would feel a need to isolate myself. To say, okay, during this time it's the worst, but it's always there, but in the summer it's worse, so maybe I shouldn't go anywhere. Well, I've been somewhere every day since then, so it's just not an option for me. I'm not a homebody. In a way I am, but in a way not. And my mother was like a hermit, and I don't want to be that way. Although she lived quite a long while, maybe that's part of it. Yeah, seriously. Yeah, I think actually research would say the opposite. Sedentary lifestyle is not good. But anyway, I like I'm saying, I really feel that need to do that. Well, guess what? I don't want to think that way. I don't want to think it's an all or nothing kind of thing. See, that's where a lot of people go wrong, in my opinion. I could be wrong. That they would say, okay, and I temporarily do, like, it's kind of like throwing a temper tantrum, but not really. It's just, like a really negative reaction to serious kinds of abuse. Say, I just want to stay, hide underneath my bed kind of thing, not really, not literally, of course. I don't think I'd fit. But anyway, you know what I'm saying. And then I say, no, that's going too far. Of course I know that's going too far. But it's that feeling, because it was, it's so bad. And knowing that, it's like setting myself up each time I go out to know that the culture here is about, people are narcissistic. So that's part of the culture. And so I basically could blame the victim and myself and say, well, if I go out, then I'm subjecting myself to the possibility, a high possibility. Seriously, my experience in around 20 years, high possibility of either being a victim or seeing somebody become a victim. Okay, of this kind of behavior. I mean, and it can get really bad. Seriously, it can get really bad. So, there has to be a middle ground, and that's where I go for. That's what the point I'm trying to get to. I go for the middle ground. Maybe not as much, but then again, what do? I still continue going out every day. Anyway, I'm wrapping this one up. Yeah, I got more to talk about on this, though.